Focus on your breath. Become aware of your natural breath rhythm. Observe the soft intake of breath and the gentle exhaling. Notice the air coming into your body, the short pause, the air easily leaving your body, and the short rest before you feel the need to breathe again. Your lungs filling and emptying, filling and emptying. Continual refreshment and nourishment of your body. The soft breath of life. When you feel ready, breathe a little more deeply. Continue to breathe deeply at your own pace, tuning into the needs of your body. Breathing in relaxation, letting out tension, centering yourself. Breathing in the new, releasing the old, refreshing yourself. Drawing in the present, releasing the past, centering yourself. Oxygenating your body, cleansing your body, energizing yourself. Resting your mind, balancing your mind, nurturing yourself. Centered, calm, relaxed. Now, take in a deep breath and let it out. Take in another deep breath. Let it out. And one more deep breath in and let it out.
Shanti all, and a very good evening to all of you. Um, Trust all of you are keeping well, and it's such a pleasure that we can spend this evening exploring a subject that's so important at this time. I think when we look at what's happening in the world, and when we look at how it impacts us as individuals, our families, this whole aspect of compassion is so key in allowing us to heal and to also be able to embrace our human family in a way so that there's that kind of collective healing that can happen. When I was asked to do this talk, I felt that it would be much more useful to actually have it as a conversation. And so I invited Sister Suman, and I'm going to bring her onto the screen now. And I've known Sister Suman for many years. She's from the UK and a good friend and a good spiritual sister and fellow traveler. And in my last trip at the UK, when we were having a conversation, um, it came through that Suman was doing some work around compassion and exploring that as a subject for herself. And I felt that who better to talk about and have a conversation around this subject than Suman. So, Suman, very happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
And and I think I would just like to share that, yes, she's been with the Brahma Kumaris for many, many years and has been so active and played a quite a pivotal role in our retreat center in Oxford for many years. But I think what I'd like to share about Suman is that she's a deep thinker, very sincere and honest person, and she has a gift with words. I've heard some of the poetry that Suman has written, and it's really amazingly beautiful. So, someone with many talents and many gifts to share with all of us. So, lovely to have you with us, Suman, in South Africa.
Thank you. What time is it there?
It's 7 in the evening.
Mhm.
When was the last time you were here? I think you had come with Sister Jayanti many years back.
Yeah, gosh, I don't remember. More than 10, 15 years probably.
Absolutely. So it's although physically we can't be in different spaces, but it's great at least um cyber wise we together. So that's fantastic.
Mhm.
So this evening, the topic on the courage of a compassionate heart, and I think wanted to create this connection between compassion and courage as well. But to start off, I think when we were chatting, we had shared that maybe we put one or two sort of definitions of compassion. So I pulled out a few, and maybe we can just read those and then we can explore what compassion means for each one of us. So
Sure.
I'll just quickly put up that slide. So this was one beautiful um, definition um, from Dari Janki, and that is compassion is the root of religion and ego is the root of sin. Compassion is to have the attitude of uplifting others, and my upliftment is merged in that. Um, I should take care of myself under all circumstances. I love how Dari connected the whole aspect of upliftment that's so deeply connected with compassion here. And the other two that I picked up was um, the wish that all sentient beings may be free from suffering. And that was a definition by the Dalai Lama. And deep awareness of the suffering of oneself and other living beings, coupled with the wish and effort to elevate it, alleviate it, and by Paul Gilbert. And This last one is really more related to self-compassion, that when we suffer, caring for ourselves as we would care for someone we truly love. Self-compassion includes self-kindness, a sense of common humanity, and mindfulness. So these were just some of the definitions. But I'd like to ask you, Suman, what does compassion mean for you?
Just very much similar to what you've actually put up on the screen. Compassion for me is it's being able to hear your own suffering, and to be able to hear the suffering of others, because I think that suffering actually hides itself from us. It eludes us, and we can go through life and not even know that we're suffering, because suffering hides itself from us. And so to be able to be quiet enough to hear the I don't know, it's like I always feel like there's a basement in my mind. There's a first floor and there's a basement. And what happens in the first floor is it's like the things that I can very easily conscious of. I know what I'm thinking about. I know where I'm going to go. I know what I said to someone 5 minutes ago. But in the basement is what I'm really thinking and feeling about someone. What's really going on. One's what you think is going on, and what's one is when you really, and I think compassion is something to do with taking the time to hear what's really going on for yourself and for others. And then it will automatically awaken a kind of kindness in you.
Suman, is there a possibility of making your voice a little louder or putting on?
Oh dear me, the common complaint about me. Okay, let me try the audio setting. Okay, the mic is on full. How about now? Is that any better?
That's a bit better, yeah. You don't have a headset with the mic.
I have another mic, but you'd have to excuse me for a minute whilst I go and get it.
Sure. I'll so long give my definition. But go ahead. Yeah, I think it's better if we get you a little louder. Okay, you want to test it quickly?
I just need to change
that's
it.
much better already.
Okay, can you hear now?
Perfect. Thank you. I liked what you really shared, the whole aspect about really being silent enough so I can really hear what's happening inside and see what's happening inside. You know, my journey with compassion was just reflecting on our relationship with pain. And I found that sometimes we judge ourselves a lot because of pain, and we see pain as failure. We see pain as being weak. We see pain as something that reflects poorly on ourselves. And I found that because we look at pain in that way, we tend to push it away, or we try to avoid it or bury it somewhere and hope it disappears. And the more we do that, the more it sort of comes up. And I felt that that sort of insight triggered for me the journey on compassion, because it's like, to face pain, because I feel you can't avoid pain or wish it away. You have to almost go through it to get into the other side. It's like a tunnel, you know, and as fearful as it looks like, there is light at the other end, but you have to walk that tunnel. And so I found that for me, that's what triggered the whole exploration on compassion, because it is about facing that pain and finding the courage to walk through it. But we can't do it when we critical of ourselves. And we have to be kind. And so I feel compassion and kindness has a strong link to it, because then only can you actually take those steps and see the other side of it. So yeah, that's what triggered for me this whole journey on compassion. And as I began to explore pain, because I was also looking at it that many times what happens is we have such an intention for change, but we keep getting into the same cycle. And it's sort of, the cycle morphs itself, so it comes out in different ways. Um, but in some ways it's almost like, unless I haven't understood the root of the pain that created the cycle, I won't quite be able to heal it, or move through it in that regard. And so it was really when I was seeing how certain patterns keep coming up that I began to see that. Yeah.
Pradeep, just leading on from one thing you said, um, a question I've started to ask myself is, if I find myself in the same cycle again and again, um, on the one hand, I can say I have the intention to change. I don't want to feel that pain, but I think, I guess I speak for myself. At a deeper level, maybe I don't want to change. At a deeper level, maybe I am addicted to my pain. Maybe at a deeper level, I feel safe with my pain because what's that English expression they have? Better the devil you know than the one you don't, something like that. And so there's the known and there's the unknown. And unknown, as you said, creates a lot of fear. And that's why you introduced the program saying you wanted to look at the link between courage and compassion. And that's why we need the courage, because actually, even though pain is uncomfortable, it's what we know. So there is a small part of us that actually wants to hold on to it. That's been my experience. I do want to let go of it, but I don't want to let go of it. If that makes sense.
Is it sometimes, do we feel that because it's not painful enough, that's why I don't want to let go of it? Is it sometimes that, or that it's just a feeling that maybe it has to run its course, and then I can be ready for the next step in some ways?
Do you know, I heard a statement many years ago by a senior spiritual lecturer. And this is a spiritual lecturer who travels the whole world, and she meets a huge array of people, from grassroots to, the upper echelons. And she made this statement. She said she noticed that there was one thing that was common in all the people that she met everywhere, and it was this: that as long as people feel they can get away with something, they'll keep doing it. And that statement stayed with me. I must have heard that 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I heard that. As long as you think you can get away with it, you'll carry on doing it. And that, she said, it was the most common aspect of human nature that she observed all over the globe.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so maybe it's true what you say, that maybe the pain isn't, maybe it's not strong enough. Yeah, I don't know. So I think that's what the compassion is. Compassion is actually taking the time to work, to make yourself do that work. But I also think that we can only approach compassion in small steps. Well, actually, I should only speak for myself. What I found with myself is I had to trick myself into being compassionate towards myself. I had to do it in bite sizes, because if I made it obvious, if I made it obvious, I found that I shut down. There was like this inner security guard that said, "Oh, this is what we're doing, is it? Trying to be nice to yourself? No way." And so I had to do things in tiny bite sizes. So I started, for example, because I realized at some point I had a profound experience one evening. It was 2016, I think. And that experience shook me. It's a long story in itself. If there's time, I'll tell it afterwards. But in essence, when I came out of that experience, it was like I was shaken, and I had this deep realization that I'd been really horrible to myself all my life. I'd been really harsh with myself, and I'd been cruel to myself, and I had no idea until that moment in time that that's how I'd been with myself. I was oblivious. And so I kind of walked away from that experience thinking, my God, I can't be like that. It's like, imagine, you have a little child and you're a mother, and just the sight of the child irritates you. And so you just slap the child. Every time you see the child, you slap the child for no reason. And I had the experience that that's what I've been doing to myself my entire life. Even though I'd been on a spiritual journey for so many years, at a subconscious level, I was still operating with myself in that way. So the small steps I took were self-appreciation, tiny little steps, and talking to animate and inanimate things. So, for example, I would wake up the smallest, tiniest things so that my psyche didn't realize that I was being nice to me, because I was doing it in teeny weeny bits. So, for instance, I'd wake up and I'd say, "Hey, good girl, you got up." And then I'd brush my teeth and I'd say, "Hey," and then I'd say, "Hey, toothbrush, thanks." Hey, my teeth would say, "Thanks for brushing me." So I kind of did this comical little animated thing with myself, and I did that for a few months, and that was the beginning of my journey of compassion, where I was bringing in kindness towards the self, step by step by step.
It's amazing, and beautiful how when we understand ourselves, how we need to find a way around our tendencies that we've developed over time. I think for me, in a way, I think the realization that I had, or the insight, was that we tend to keep feeling that we need to keep performing and keep doing work, and almost trying to prove our worth in some ways through always being very active and doing things like that. And there were two things that I think came as an insight. It was many years ago. I was still living in Cape Town, and I had been to Mount Abu, and I had such a lovely experience there. And I came back with this determination that I don't want to lose that feeling. And after about a week or two, I found the old feelings welling up again, and that feeling I had in Mount Abu was slowly fading again. And I remember sitting in meditation, and it was just like in that moment, this sort of subtle shift in attitude came, and that was, I don't have to do anything. And that was quite a deep kind of um, aspect, because we always are so conditioned in needing to do what we think is expected of us. But I just had a thought, I don't have to do anything. I will do it because I want to do it, because I love doing it. And so then it's not that I withdrew from the responsibilities in a sense, but I think it became like a new attitude towards it, that this is something that I'm embracing not as a have to, but as a want to. And that it's aligning in me very clearly to what I feel is of value for me. And then the other thing that I felt, what took me onto this journey deeper in self compassion as well, is also, um, you know, enjoying to to do things that I know feeds me in different ways. So whether it's pottering in the garden, or whether it's you know um, going for walks in nature, or whatever the case may be, but it's like integrating in my everyday um, sort of activities, or not like an activity, but giving myself permission. I think that was the key thing of the things that I do enjoy. I love drawing or writing, and so just giving myself the permission to do that. And I felt that in a way it's like igniting that feeling of love in what I'm doing, rather than the have tos. And that sort of emerged kind of a more gentler approach to the self. So that began my journey to that shift in attitude from the have tos to the want to, and what is it that I want to. And I think they much later now, the next step has really been as well, that also deciding for myself where I want to put my energy. Because I think sometimes the tendency has been to always fill in the gaps and do whatever is needed out there in a sense. But also the realization that I don't have to do that, but rather be more clear about how I want to use my energy, and have the self respect to feel that it's okay to choose how I want to use my energy, and other things others can do if that's what they would like to. So it's like not asserting the self, but it's about valuing me in a way so that I engage my life and the things around me with more kindness and gentleness. Mm.
Mm. Um, I found it very um, interesting, this thing you said about have to and want to, and something I've been thinking about, kind of not deeply, but it's kind of like in and out of my the surface of my mind, let's say. It's something to do with conscience, and I hadn't made a connection until you were speaking just now on conscience and compassion.
Mm.
And um, I think when I started sharing, one of the first things, I think key things I said was about listening to the self. And there is a voice inside of our heads that is called conscience. And if I allow myself to be guided by conscience, life becomes very simple. And I begin to become me rather than something others want me to be. And then I feel free and I feel so proud of myself when I follow conscience. And that sense of feeling proud of yourself, that's where that worthiness comes in, that sense of value for yourself, that sense of respect and regard, high regard for yourself. And that then translates into compassion for yourself and others. And I was having a conversation with someone a few weeks ago, and actually we were playing with these words: compassion, conscience, intuition, premonition, sixth sense. And my sense or my understanding of intuition is that you can catch you. It's like you detect a certain vibe that's out there. And then because your antenna is open or your mind is open in some way, you catch it and then you bring it in, okay? And then you translate it into your mind and you get guided to go in a certain direction. However, the big difference between intuition and conscience is this, is that intuition might kind of to do with something that you've caught and brought in, whereas conscience is something coming deep from within. And I've also noticed in my self-observation that conscience is something, it speaks it's very brief, few words, it doesn't do sentences. Intuition does paragraphs. Conscience doesn't do more than a sentence. It will tell you. And intuition is a little bit floppy, whereas conscience is very direct. It's definitive and confident, and it'll just say something like, this is the thing to do. And every part of every cell will know it's the right thing to do. And if we follow conscience again and again, compassion seems to get easier. Yeah, and I hadn't realized that until you were speaking, actually, Pratibha. The connection between the two. And actually, there's another thing I think as well that helps us with compassion.
It's beautiful in a sense because, as you're sharing how conscience and compassion so connected, because it's almost like the opposite of conscience is the ego. And it's like where there's the ego, compassion cannot exist there. It's so it's that coming to that place of truth within me that will allow this kind of pure feeling, but pure understanding and pure thinking to hold that energy. Something that I want us to just explore a little bit now is also the connection between self-compassion and compassion for others, because I think it's quite interesting in a way. In some ways, we recognize that if we are not compassionate with ourselves, we cannot extend that to others. So any thoughts you've had on that, or experiences, or any stories around that?
The only thing I can say is 100% agree. You cannot be compassionate towards others, yeah, and not in a real and sustainable way. You might feel sympathy for others, you might have empathy for others, but you won't have compassion unless you are compassionate with yourself. And our relationship with ourselves is projected into every other relationship we have, whether it's relationship with our own body, whether it's relationship with the clothes we wear, whether it's relationship with the way we treat our car and our furniture, not just people. Everything I treat is just an extension. That is a lesson that is just become so evident to me in the last few years. When I treat myself well, then I treat others well. Otherwise, not sustainable.
I have a funny story because you spoke about even how we treat objects. When we were living in Cape Town, we had a photocopy machine, and it was an ancient one. And you know how the paper always jams and it doesn't work. And I would get so frustrated because my tendency is to get things done quickly. And the sister I was living with at that time, Kalpana, will say, just wait. And she'll go and very gently press the start button or whatever. And it always worked for her. Whereas with me, it never worked. So whenever there was photocopying to do, I'll say, Kalpana, your little machine is waiting for you. But it was just one example. One thing that I remember when I did the self-compassion workshop with Dr. Sarah, and she shared something that really struck a deep chord for me. She said that unless we work with ourselves with self-compassion, and really uh, heal aspects within ourselves that we need to, what would happen is that when we see others struggling with something, it will pull us and we won't be able to help them. So it is almost like the feeling that whatever I'm holding as a trace inside of me, um, whether it's an attitude or even a memory that I haven't healed from, um, it's not necessarily that it's happening to me, but when I see others experiencing that, it's like I will identify with that immediately. And as soon as I identify with it, it's like I will be absorbed by it. And of course, then I cannot help the others. So I found that quite important in a way that we can only really offer something to someone else if inside of us we've cleared it out. Otherwise, it will inevitably lead to identifying with it, and then we get absorbed by it. Yeah, it's like it becomes like a very deep pool that we can't get out of.
Yeah, and there's an expression, isn't there? That really, this expression is bandied around a lot in self-compassion workshops, and it's hurt people, hurt people.
Mm, mm,
Um, um, I was thinking about something else as well. How, because one thing that I found is sustaining self-compassion is tricky. I haven't, as yet, I don't think, been successful in being sustainable. I can go through phases of it, periods, seasons, but then the seasons change. And so I don't know, what do you think about that, Pratibha? What have been your methods to sustain it?
mm. I think for myself, in some ways, I've had to sort of uh, re-look at myself in different ways, and try different things um, to connect for me. So sometimes I find that it has been periods of journaling that has been very helpful for me. Um, but then I find that that can also end up being routine, and then it doesn't work as much as it needs to. So then I need to do something different.
Mm,
Um, and also, I've explored reading things from different authors sometimes,
mm,
and dipping into language that maybe I'm not always familiar with, but
mm,
I find that that often helps me to offer new perspective, you know. So the couple of authors that I like exploring, and one element of it is also I have a love for science. So sometimes I look at the neuroscience stuff, not just spirituality, but science as well, or aspects like that. But bringing in different language into my awareness always triggers further thought and exploration, and somehow brings me back to that essence that I need to be in.
mm,
Because I think sometimes when we hear things too often, we stop hearing it when it's the same language. And so also just taking words and re-looking at them, you know, like soul consciousness, for example, is something we hear so often and every day in a way that we stop hearing it. And so I do find that every now and again I have um, to challenge myself in terms of how do I unpack it and make sense of things. So I think that for me, I think in some ways, um, keeping this focus on just keep on learning no matter what, you know, and exploring has been very helpful.
mm.
It brings me back to my center that I need to be in. Yeah, yeah.
So, what I'm hearing is that the keys for sustaining self compassion might be something to do with variety and
Mm,
newness.
mm,
Um, and actually, I was remembering something else. Uh, Two words that, again, in the Brahma Kumaris, we use, we kind of really use them a lot. They're overused. And we put them together, two qualities, loving and detached. But I recently I was reflecting on one of our elders who has just passed away, and I was thinking about her qualities and what her contribution had been to the Brahma Kumaris. She'd been with the Brahma Kumaris for what 80 years or something, and so I was just after hearing the news of her passing, I was sitting one day and I was just reflecting about her as a person. And what I kind of came up with as her key contribution is that I kept seeing her face in different settings. There could be like a small group of people meeting her. She could be in a big hall meeting hundreds of people. And it was always the same look on her face, very specific look. And the look was something like, um, I'm sitting here just inside and I'm just watching, like looking through windows. And I really, to me, whether it's hot or cold, whether it's good or bad, it just doesn't make any difference.
mm,
There is this state of totally being um, no judgment, no assessment, no commentary. And in Hindi, we have a very specific word for this. It's called it's a yogic stage that describes the stage of a very high uh, yogi, a person who practices meditation. And the word is nirsankala. He
mm,
who has been able to travel beyond thought itself. And it's like she would just watch like someone standing on a platform with trains going past them. You know, there's like she never commented on anything.
Mm.
That sense of being uninvolved, but not uninvolved in a cold or clinical way, but just, I don't know. And because she wasn't like, had no vested interest in what she was watching or seeing, and had no opinion about it being bad or good, no labels, she was able to stay so loving with everyone and everything. There was equanimity.
Mm.
And from that equanimity was born love.
Mm.
So detached and loving. And I think that kind of practice of observing in that way is also helps us in our journey of compassion, whether it's for the self or for others. Right at the beginning, when you showed the quotes, there was one quote about being mindful of your own suffering. And I think that word mindful, as you know, the practice of mindfulness has, become so popular all over the world in the last decade. And it's because when mindful, I suppose, is maybe another word for just observing, just observing with no commentary. And it takes you into a very relaxed, soft space where you're not tense. You don't care what the outcome is. You're carefree. It's really empowering.
Mm. Mm. You know, it reminds me of an interview that Neville did with Daddy Janki many years back. I think it was during the Just a Minute, uh, you know, project time, and he asked Daddy, Daddy, what do you do in that minute of silence? And she said, I'm silent. And he said, Daddy, what do you think? She said, I'm silent. And it was just so cute the way that engagement happened. But because he asked, are you sending good wishes? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? She said, no, I am just silent. And I think it's such a deep lesson in a way that we are so in our heads with the thinking, and that we in some ways forget just to be, just to be um, silent or still, or just to be ourselves in a way. Sometimes it feels like when you were sharing um, of Dadi, it just felt like our thinking, sometimes we trying to be something through our thinking, whereas maybe they had mastered the art of being and let their being create the thoughts rather than trying to think themselves into being something. Yeah, yeah.
Actually, as you were speaking, Pratibha, I was remembering that one of my early experiments to do with compassion was it was very simple. It was just about being slowing down. I think that is the first step to being compassionate, is slowing down. And then if you slow down, eventually you become still. And if you sit in stillness long enough, eventually you go into a space of silence. And if you stay in silence long enough, eventually you find yourself at peace. And in that peace, then it's like your heart opens up and joy comes out and kindness towards yourself comes out. But I think it's very progressive. Slow down, become still, go into silence, be at peace, and then the love and the joy and the compassion and the kindness come.
It's lovely. I'd like to leave a bit of space. If anybody wants to ask questions, please put them on the chat, and then we can take it up. Um, I liked what you're sharing in a way, these steps that we need to take. that when we slow down and go into silence and become more still, um, become peaceful, and then the love emerges. And sometimes it's like, I feel we um, we try to make effort to be loving, but actually what we're sharing in these steps, and it feels so right in a way, is that just be peaceful, just go back to that space, and the love will naturally emerge. You don't have to make effort to be loving. Because I think when we try to make effort to be loving, number one, it doesn't feel real. But number two, it's never sustainable as well. Yeah.
Mm. Being at peace with ourselves, I think, is a big key.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Okay. So I don't see any questions in the chat. I think maybe we covered what people are thinking through our conversation. Suman, would you take us into a meditation now?
Yeah,
Let's do
sure.
a bit of a meditation, and we can end off with some closing statements. Okay.
Okay. As we sit here at the end of an evening of conversation, let's switch into another mode. Let me sit back in the chair that I am, move my shoulders a little bit, relax myself, my physical body, that is. And let me just take a deep breath. And it's as if in that breath, I'm breathing in all the good things that I've heard about compassion this evening. I'm breathing it in, and I, the spirit, the soul, am just absorbing it at some level, conscious or subconscious. I'm breathing in and absorbing. And after I've done that, I find that the traffic in my mind is slowing down. And very quickly, I become still. And it's as if the rest of the world around me has faded away. Nothing exists except this very moment and me. And as I sit here in this moment with me and me alone, I hear my conscience speak to me. And my conscience says, you are valuable. You are unique. There is no one like you. I honor you. And as I hear these words, I cannot argue with them. I know them to be true. And so soft feelings of self-regard emerge from within. And then my conscience speaks again and says, you are valuable, but know also that etched and hidden deep away inside every one of us in the planet today, in some tiny corner, we all have wounds and shadows. but we all also have the power to heal those wounds, those shadows. And it is imperative that as a race, we are kind and compassionate to ourselves and hold ourselves gently so that we are not angry with our failings, but we are forgiving. And hearing my conscience say this, I say to myself, from myself, I forgive you. And it is as if I am putting my arms around myself, my inner being, embracing myself, holding myself as though I am holding a small child who is scared and hurt, and just soothing the child. And I say, it's okay. I will protect you. I'm here. I will hold you. And this is compassion for myself. I hold myself in that same way. And having done this inner work, I now return and become aware of my surroundings, of the people around me, of the fact that I was listening to this talk. I become present of the room and this event once again.
Thank you, Suman. That was beautiful. Um, just as we close, do you have any final remarks to make to everyone on this subject? Last words that you may like to share?
One word, anchor. I think that to emerge compassion for the self, especially in difficult times, is not like turning a tap on and off. You need to have something that's quick and fast and short and brief. And for me, I call those things anchors. So if I start to feel wobbly, I remember one of my anchors. So when I say, so for example, one anchor I use is, there is no one like me. You know, because if you said instead, if you said something like, you're great, you'd say, no, I'm not. People are always complaining about me. But when you say, there's no one like me, you can't argue with that. That's an anchor that anchors you in a positive, lovely feeling for yourself. So my final word is anchor.
Great. For me, I think my lesson this last while has been patience. And the definition of patience that you've had was wait and see.
Yeah.
And so I really love that definition because it's allow things to unfold, don't push for it.
Yeah.
So that's also compassion for me in a way.
Yeah,
Great. Okay.
100% agree.
So thank you so much, Suman, for joining me this evening. It's been a very enriching conversation. I think we should do one like this very soon again. Um, I hope everyone else, there's been many comments that people have enjoyed it, but I think it's been a very lovely natural flow between us. So it's been great. So thank you very much and see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Om Shanti, and love to the family in London.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and likewise to all my friends in South Africa, all my
Yeah.
lovely sisters.
Okay, great.